I think this calls for a little celebration. Our first televised gig. First of many.
We gotta play it like it's our last, or it just might be.
They still think everything's fine, but it's not.
Dave, come on, let's go.
Wait.
Don't you see?
Thank you for joining us on the Downing Cut. Today, my guest is Chris Ihlenfeldt, who is a talented actor and producer known for his diverse roles in both film and television, with credits ranging from Gone with the Dead, Portlandia, and The Librarians, to producing projects like The Inventor, Space Command Redemption, and Frank and Zed. His work showcases a commitment to both creative storytelling and cinematic excellence. Welcome to the Downing Cut, Chris. You're shaking your head.
Well, it's just like, okay, well, a couple hundred projects later, you didn't list any reality TV shows, so I must be doing something right.
We will. Oh, is that a good thing? Okay.
Well, some people say that's AAA pros, but to average viewers, it's more like, it's still TV. Who cares? Sister Wives. Ooh.
Work is work, man. That's how I look at it. So, yeah. Are you in LA?
No, I'm back in Seattle.
Okay.
I basically tried moving down, following the Hollywood dreams, but of course I did that at the wrong time, which was 2020 when the pandemic and COVID happened.
Okay.
So I basically was moving down there for a Netflix show and got firsthand of the COVID experience and the shutdowns, and basically was like, wow, I'm running out of work. So, but it was hard time on everyone. The industry hit, it took a hit, and I just basically came back to Seattle after that. So,
let's. I want to go deeper into that, but first, tell me how did your whole career start? What caused this whole passion for acting, producing, directing, all the things that you've done? Where did that start?
Well, I used to watch movies with my dad growing up. Okay. Like he's the guy, not to get him in trouble, but he was the guy in my freshman year of high school that pulled the prank to basically say, hey, your grandma died, pull me out of class. And I was like literally scared, like, thinking my grandma got killed. And then my dad's like, nah, we're going to see Grindhouse, the Tarantino Robert Rodriguez double feature, which actually turned out to be one of the best experiences I ever had at movies with my dad. And of course we still did the kids thing where we snuck candy and wore like a long sweatshirt. And, so we basically stopped at a gas station. I think it was 7-Eleven or something, or Chevron.
Yeah.
Basically snuck in there and was like, we're not paying for the concessions and stuff. So poor AMC, it was like, we lost money on this, but what are you going to do?
You had a good dad. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So then, how old were you again?
I was freshman year, so I was...
okay, so you're in high school.
Yeah, I was in high school.
Yeah.
But I still was acting like a kid, I was just like, movies, woo. Yeah. But to reiterate and continue on, I basically started in the industry late. I was doing, night shift. I actually had a welding degree, finished that degree. Basically always had a love for movies, and then one day I just kind of was like unhappy, and then I was like, let's do something for a while that makes me happy. So I basically looked on Facebook and went to film groups in town and was just like trying to network, and ever since then I've on and off had work from Facebook, and this was like straight up like, man, I'm really digging this. Like, I dig the people, I dig the culture. And I've always had a curiosity with how movies are made and being on set. So here I am.
That was it? Did you take any no acting film school or anything like that?
So I basically did Seattle Films Institute back in 2016. I did
Okay.
like a class. I kind of dropped out of it because I was just like, I had, I don't want to say I had problems with the instructors, but I was just more of like, man, I'm not really learning anything in the price. And then found out later it wasn't accredited at the time. So I was just like,
Oh,
and then later it became accredited. But I was in the early years where they were still like toying with like, hey, we don't get actually, you know, education out of this. So I was like, yeah, I'd rather just get on set and be hands on. I'm a very hands on guy. I like using my hands. You know,
yeah.
I should have been hand model Joe. You never
Well,
know. Yes,
you
yes.
know, you got to say, man, you've gone far from. I mean, we know each other from back in the day, and looking at
Artifact.
your IMDb, it's like it exploded. I was like, holy smokes, you've been busy. And I saw, on LinkedIn, I did see a couple posts that you were, I think, on film set and doing stuff here and there, and I was like, okay, so he's in LA,
Mhm.
and you've been busy. Like, kudos, congratulations that
Thank
you've
you,
you've
sir.
you've gotten so much work and experience, and it sounds like that was your school as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, why not? What So the pandemic hit, so you moved back to Seattle, Pacific
Yes.
Northwest. Are you planning on going back to LA anytime soon, or are you going to stick around here?
Well, I want to stay around here because I'm very close with the family. But if I get like a long term, thing with Netflix or, just, for instance, if I worked with Disney on like a 5 month project, yeah, I'll temporarily move. But I'm always been traveling in my work. I mean, I've worked in 17 different states. Filming something, all the way from stuff in Florida to Georgia, stuff in Montana, stuff in New Mexico, California, Arizona.
That's awesome.
So I'm young enough. I'm in my early 30s. I'm still young enough to be able
Yeah,
to do this because I have less responsibilities than everyone else.
yeah,
So I don't take it for granted, but I also have the thrill and we're all kind of sick in this industry. It's not a normal 9 to 5 job. Most
yeah.
people have to be handle rejection, but they also gotta keep networking and socialize because you never know when your next paycheck's going to be. But I've always considered this as like a thrill, and it's like something I'm very passionate about. So I'm very able to just like let certain things go when most people are like, well, screw this, I'm done with this. And now being able to travel long distances is very key to me. But I've always liked doing road trips. I got to meet some incredible people along the way,
Oh
and I
yeah,
have friends in basically every state, and some enemies. But we won't
you
talk
made
about them.
enemies.
Well, not by choice. It's just
Yeah.
someone spilled coffee on me, or some other people are doing whatever. So, but you've been busy too, man. Like it's not just me, and I've seen some of your stuff. So we
I've
just goddamn it, like encountered each other more. That's what's crazy. Very
well,
talented, my friend.
thank you. But this isn't about me; it's about you.
It's about you too. Come on, Joe.
I got married. I have a 4-year-old, a baby on the way.
Congrats.
So that
Hey,
kind of ties you down. I'm in Bremerton, so I'm across the water from Seattle. So
okay.
that slows me out of the hub, if you will. And I think uh, let's see, 2020, my wife and I created a film, short film, 10
Oh,
minutes, to see if we could do it. I've been on the other side of the camera and watching everyone do their thing. So I thought, well, let's see if we can do it. So we made a short film. Didn't really have a strong story, but we thought, let's see what happens. And we submitted to film festivals and I won. And then that
woohoo!
drove the drive to do another short. So I made another short last year or 2023. I'll send you the link. It's not public yet.
Hey,
Um,
it's okay.
yeah,
We'll keep it secret. It's like no one's
but
watching, but they are.
we will. I will release it publicly eventually. Probably in January. Actually, I'm about 2 months out, so probably when this interview comes out, it'll be public. But it's called Cousin, and it was my first time writing, first time directing, first time doing cinematography. I've edited before, but it was like just the basic editing. So it was my first time editing second time editing a film, and yeah, it was. I didn't know how to color correct, so it looks pretty bad, but it won awards. And that's all. That was the goal. It was really to highlight Philip Wheeler. I don't know if you know Philip. Uh, if you ever met him when you were here in Seattle. Anyways, he's over in LA.
Which Philip? Which Philip? I know like four.
Philip Wheeler.
Oh yeah, he's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's cool.
This is how the community works. Anyways, back to you, my friend. This is what I really want to talk about. So tell us, how did this whole Netflix thing happen? How did you get connected? How did you apply? How did that work?
Well, I did the typical, production hub, job posting, and then I applied for it and did a Hail Mary. And basically, they're like, give me a call and like, hey, could you work for like 6 months? And I was like, okay, where? And they're like, Temecula, California. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And then they're like, have you ever heard of Car Masters? And I was just like, yeah, I could do that. And then they like, are you kind of a mechanic? I'm like, I'm good with my hands, but I'm not a mechanic. And they're like, well, you're going to learn. So I got to help restore cars with the guys and learn from the TV hosts. And I had a blast. Yeah, it was, God, Mark Toll and his, group and his mechanics. Yeah, I basically got to help restore cars and film a TV show. But the only negative is like, that was like breaking records that summer with California heat wave, and it was like 120 degrees per week for like 3 weeks, and so it was just like being in the shop made me realize like, okay, don't complain too much, but you need to drink a crap load of water.
Yeah.
H2O is key.
Yeah.
That's another thing on set. You always got to stay hydrated.
What was I didn't catch the show. What was the show?
Car Masters.
Car Masters. Okay.
Yeah.
So they hired you as an actor then.
No, I was actually a PA and driver for that, but I was really more of a mechanic. Only time I ever did that.
You were in front of the camera then too.
No, I was like, so here's the thing. I was part of the crew. So I basically be the guy handing them wrenches, would actually do the projects on the side. Because also at the same time, I was just like, I really don't want people to critique my mechanical skills. So let the stars do the stars. And I just be like, okay, I'll fix it and do an oil change and, paint like the headers and all that stuff. I'll do all that and shine the chrome with Coca-Cola. That was fun. That took a day and a half because it was like, well, this has been rusting for like 40 years, so you're going to have to unrust it. And I'm like, well, how are you going to do? And they're like, elbow grease, can do attitude, couple swear words, and Coca-Cola. I was like, okay.
Or at least say, do you have a drill that has a bit that I can just dip it? And
if I were only smarter, Joe, like, seriously, that would solve all my problems. But of course, it was like, no, F-bomb, 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 Coca-Cola. Man, I smell like Coke.
You're like,
it's all sticky.
This is the Netflix
all over.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But then it led to other roles and other things, right? That's how it continued to roll?
Yeah, it's more of like, have a can-do attitude, don't try to complain. This is why I learned pretty quick. Like, first day, there was people like, so Rachel Winkoff and Simon Carls, PAs at the time, basically taught me from the get-go is like, don't complain, just say yes, sir, yes, sir. So I've learned some interesting people over the years. I can name like thousands of people that have helped me with my career, like Tony Becerra, AD, just, always being very helpful. And, I've always had very lucky in the sense of great people that have been there, done 20 years or 40 years or even 2 months. People have always tried to help me, and I'm always willing to learn. So I just always learn quick is don't complain. Just have a good time.
I think the one key thing that when I saw your post on LinkedIn that you were a PA, production assistant, I think the first thing that it came to my mind was, oh, Kevin Feige was a PA. That's how he started. You know, it's
So is
like,
Eli Roth.
there you go.
Oh,
I
except for
mean,
Borderlands. Oh, okay. We're gonna get some haters now. A few that actually saw it.
what? So,
Oops, sorry. We're gonna
Chris,
get
you,
canceled, Joe. Sorry.
yeah,
What's
yeah,
gonna
you're
happen?
getting any haters. What I want to ask you, because you have so much. It's like I've had. It's so funny every time I talk to someone. I look at their IMDb. I'm like, holy smokes, you guys done a lot. And I gotta say, right now, I think you're in first place from the amount of credits that I can see. Um,
Well, I'm a workaholic, and plus I never said no for years. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm picky, so you see less works, but the work I put out is high quality and kind of big. Like
that's the
mostly,
key.
like most of the time anymore is I get some corporate stuff. I work with Comedy Dynamics, who do the Netflix and Hulu specials. So I get to work with Gaffigan a lot, and Tom Papa was the last one I did with those guys. They could call me back and say, "Hey, Cisco Hansen, absolutely one of the best EPs you'll ever meet and work with. Doesn't throw ego. The guy's been nominated for so many Emmys. Keeps calling me because he likes me, and I put in the due, and he's like, yeah, come to this neck of the woods in the country and meet this guy and work hard and
Yeah,
film for 2 days and then fly back to Seattle, which is always an adventure. So that's kind of what I do now. But the point I'm trying to make to anyone that sees this is work hard, have a good attitude, don't be a jerk whenever you can. I can't stress that enough because people get canceled all the time or they never get called back because they're a jerk because they complain too much or they don't want to do stuff or don't work hard.
yeah,
It really, this community, especially in Seattle, is very small for that.
yeah,
People
100%.
people talk, they really do, and they work hard. But there's some people out there that are like, don't want to work with that guy. So
Yep. I think you're spot on something you said about all the work that you're doing is quality, and I think that rings a bell for me because as an actor doing so many short films and things and projects that maybe sometimes don't even come to light, um,
yeah, I've got a
then
couple
you,
of those. Yeah,
yeah, you realize you're like, okay, so I did this for free, but it's not coming out. Okay, so now I need to be more selective on what I'm choosing to make sure it's actually quality versus quantity. And there's some filmmakers out there that just are busting out multiple projects a year, and it's like, well, is it good?
Spielberg. Yeah,
That
yeah,
type of thing. So I've kind of grown up based on the lessons I've learned to go, is it going to be quality? And then flipping the switch, going behind the camera, it's the same thing. It's like, can I make something that's worth quality? And money is always an issue. So it's like, if I can spend money on craft services, transportation, get an Airbnb for everybody, but not pay them, is it going to be something they still want to do? Is kind of the catch, right?
yeah.
Um, so I think when I did Pyrocene, it was like a calling card. Can I do this? Hey, look, we did something. It looks pretty good. And then Cousin was the same thing. My goal there was to actually highlight the actors in the film that don't really get recognized a lot.
Yeah.
And Philip Wheeler was one of them. And the goal was to say, have you ever won like a Best Actor award? Have you ever, because he's a great actor. We met on Western Soul, and he says, like, no, I haven't, I've never won anything. And I was like, that's our goal. That's what we're going to try to do. So, and we accomplished it. We did it.
Woohoo!
Um, he's won like 4 Best Actor awards for that film.
At
So,
least.
at least.
That-
And it's still in festivals, so we'll see what happens. But back to you talking about actors. You've been on so many projects, and behind the camera, in front of the camera. Uh, what, in your opinion, makes a good actor?
Willing to do anything the director and always adapt. And I'm always been good. I've been told I'm good at doing improv. So I always like do some ad libs, like Portlandia, for instance. The 2 lines I had were yeah, because we were basically doing a parody off of West Side Story. Okay,
Yeah.
So it basically the switch was it was nerds versus hunks. So basically nerds versus jocks. I was with Fred and we were doing the nerds portion. I was basically holding the torch, being an extra, but the director kept liking me because I kind of look nerdy. Yeah, I'm not a 10 people. I'm a solid
You're
5 on a good day.
you're
Hey,
hired.
look at this, my hair, but he literally, I was only hired for maybe an hour of work, and then turned into an all day affair. And then we were in 2 skits because with that show, with how great that was in Portland, is they're filming every episode at once. Like Fred and Carrie literally did like 6 costume changes. It was truly amazing to see Fred go from one costume to another and just literally do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. They literally just like, okay, we'll scrap it. We'll just do something else. And Fred just go crazy. And Fred was absolutely a class act. That guy was like one of the coolest guys to work with. I fell in love with comedians after working with that guy. So when I do comedy specials with Comedy Dynamics, I'm always excited because comedians are very good at improv, and you never know what they're going to do. They can go from PC, PG humor to hardcore rated R in like a
Yeah.
flash, and they have no buts, ands about it. But the point they're trying to do is have fun, entertain anyone that sees them, and it's really a technique that I've picked up from just seeing, being a visual guy, just trying to become a better actor. But I know I'm not going to win any Oscars, but
Yet.
don't be surprised if you see me in the background of like a TV show, like
Yeah.
something in the future, because I always think it's a kick, and plus it makes my family kind of happy because they're like, oh, there's Chris in the background, oh, he bumped
Like,
in that guy, oh, he
oh,
did
it's
this.
working.
Yeah. Why is he worried?
What
Who's
he's
that girl with
trying to
him?
do, it's actually
He's got
working.
no chance.
Yeah.
What's going on?
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges you've faced when balancing the creative demands of acting or logistical responsibilities or production roles like line producing in those arenas?
Well, producers always a new kind of stress that you can't be prepared until you actually are in the action, as it were. Try to find money, try to find finances, make the crew happy, be able to make the production runs. You basically have to have so many thinking hats. As a PA, you basically you're trying to help them all out, but you also see it second perspective. It can be also very stressful because a lot of departments don't think you're important enough because you're in like an sorry entry level kind of position. But you're just there to learn, but it can be stressful. But in any position of these, you always got to learn to work long hours, because 12s are always like the big stress, fatigue. But sometimes you don't be surprised if you work more than 24 hours, like 48-hour film festival kind of thing, or something like a shot got like ruined and everyone's like angry, so but they still gotta get that shot and they're in the time crunch. Sometimes like 18, 24, or even 36 hours is like the normal. Like I said, it's not a normal job. It's not a 9 to 5 where you have set in stone, you're able to just finish at a certain time, go home. It's like depends on the workload. Some shoots are very crazy, like you work on like Deadliest Catch or something where you're on like a boat and you're just like never can prepare for anything like that. Or you can like try to prepare like a fire show or building a tree house or something. It's like some things are controllable, some things aren't. Or you can be in a sound studio, and that's probably the most controlled environment. So
When you're talking about these long hours, are you a union?
uh so I dabbled in and out with union. There's been times where I've been union, and there's times where I haven't. But I worked so much non-union shows. It's always a slippery slope, kind of like, oh, are you union? Yeah, but I seem to get less work with union
Yeah.
when I'm union. But it's kind of like I am, and I'm not. So it's kind of like, eh.
Yeah, because I thought like if you're working, I thought unions had like strict rules on how many hours you can be on set and everything.
They do, and for the most part, unions are pretty well. Um, especially with the strikes going on, and I applaud them for what they're trying to do. But like I said, I seem to get less work with unions, but I'm not trying to piss people off here. But it's like
Yeah,
I don't know. I just going in now as a union, so
yeah, that
I
makes
wish I
sense.
was in union full time. But it comes down to who you know. If you can get work, you socialize. Where
Yeah,
a coordinator keeps hiring you or not. That's what the bare bones is like. You do that, you basically are able to keep the workflow through word of mouth and your reputation. That's what matters in the end, not whether you're in a union or a non-union. I mean, that's
yeah.
just all added bonuses. So,
Network. Learn to network.
yes,
Could
that
you
is key.
describe what was that?
That is key, my friend. That is
Yes.
key.
Could you describe a moment in your career when your behind the scenes knowledge, maybe as a producer or a PA, helped solve a major issue on set?
So I was an art PA on a little indie flick. I can't remember the name, but I was working with Peter Spawn on. Um, he was the production designer on that. There was a problem with some of the props weren't like fully painted. And we were in a time crunch because we, only had so much time to like prep, um, the props and stuff. So I basically had to go to Home Depot. Who knew? Buy some paint and basically was had to like spray can like this prop. It was like some kind of weapon of some sort, but it was like rubber. It wasn't like a real actual weapon, but it was just funny movie magic. You use rubber and you use artificial glass or sugar for stuff like that. Anyway, so I basically had the spray paint outside right before we were shooting, and basically within 5 minutes, I had to kind of delay him to let it dry. So I was acting like, I was threatening to quit, but I wasn't. And we were getting like an argument with me and Peter, but it was all for show to basically just delay it. And then we told the director, no, 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 no. We're not going to quit. We're not going to join the union. This is not what's going to happen. But secretly, we're like, no, we're just trying to let this crap dry, so
You're stalling.
we're just stalling, just trying to make a big fuss. And of course, all the ADs are like, man, we don't need this. This is an indie.
Yeah,
Budget's tight. Don't do this.
that is funny. So you just basically solved some
Yeah, so
time.
basically, the moral of the story is I had to paint a prop, but I had to think of something because it was like, Peter was like, it takes 10 minutes. Let's argue.
Let's argue.
He'll deny that and doesn't remember that. But yeah, that was a funny day. And then of course, every day we would just always like kick it and have a good
Yeah.
time. I like that guy. That guy is he's very creative. So in the industry here.
As
Okay.
someone who has worked on various roles on production, how do you foster collaboration between different departments to ensure smooth and efficient shoots?
Communication and be able to know how to talk to people really goes a long way.
Yeah.
Like now we're and also know having previous knowledge of knowing what people can do and what they can't do, from basically being in their shoes in terms of I know what Grip and Gaffer does. They work with the lights and LED lights and get the equipment together and set up the gels and the C47s, clothespins, people, if you don't know that. And knowing what their equipment and being able to just talk with other departments and treat them like human beings because that's what they are. So I'm communication's always been key. So
Communication. What's a C47?
you don't know what a C47 is? Seriously?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It's a clothespin, dude.
What?
It's a clothespin. So you use your
Literal.
clothes, you put a pin on it and then
Why is it called C-47?
Um, I heard different reasons, but I think back in the day for like IRS, I could be wrong. You guys are probably the film people probably gonna know, but it was like for filing reports for like the IRS and what they had to put for like their taxes, and they call it like a C-47.
Hilarious. I had no clue. I would just call it a clothespin, but even
Yeah,
if I
they
did
call them
my taxes, I would say
C-47s, and
clothespin.
you know, like the little wooden boxes they call apple boxes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's most people don't know that. They're just like, "Oh, what's the bollocks for?" And it's like, "That's an apple box, dude."
Apple box makes sense to me because it looks like a crate that you would carry apples in. But a C-47 sounds like a plane.
Yeah. Yeah, and they call like the marker, you know, the sticks, or they call it, you know, people, you know, have different terminology for
Well,
it.
C-47s, that's the first time I ever heard that one. So thank
Huh?
you for educating me.
Yeah.
So what lessons have you learned from working with directors and producers that you've applied to your own work as a producer?
With directors, it's like knowing how to talk to actors, being able to. Oh, there goes my cat. I got cat. You might see like Ripley just jump around in the
You're
background.
like, squirrel.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Anyway, with directors, I've had all kinds. I've had field general directors, which are the guys that you basically listen to everything they say. They know every job in the world. They're the Martin Scorsese's of the world. Not saying I worked with that guy. I'm just saying they're a different breed of guys that you're just like, man, I don't know if the shot's gonna work. And he's like, give me 10,000 doves. We're like, what? How the hell are we gonna get 10,000 doves? And then gets 10,000 doves in the background. You're like, that guy's a genius. There's guys like that where it's just like they just understand motion pictures, man. Like it's hard to explain. So directors, it's kind of like leave them alone, but also if you have some problems, let them know because they're basically the most stressed person on set. Where producers, it really is them trying to coordinate and make sure the director doesn't have to worry about the day-to-day stuff behind the scenes because directors worry about the actors and their vision. And most of the time they talk to the DPs, the director of photography, who is the guy for camera. He's the one that puts the director's vision on camera and makes sure the ACs are able to, you know, get the right cameras and, you know, get the right equipment, get the right height, get the right lighting with gripping gaffers, and be able to, you know, get the vision of the directors. So really in the end, all these guys are moving parts for a director's vision to get the best picture movie possible done and completed, where it was like, damn, we did something good. But that doesn't happen all the time. It happens like 95% of the time. But there's, like you said, there's been some train wrecks or movies that haven't been made. An investor pulls out. And just like you said, it's always a learning curve with every department. And then art department, probably apart from monsters and creatures, you know, makeup artists, they probably have the most creative. They, you know, they are different forms. They could be set dressers. They make the sets. They work with construction. They do the design of every room and layout. I mean, they're probably arguably the hardest, most stressed, but they can make some wonderful things. So I'm big
Have
in art
you
department. I think
have
those guys are
you
cool.
have you picked up any kind of lessons or tips that you've kind of embraced and then used that in your own projects?
Uh, treat people good. Try to get more with less, but at the same time, don't be cheap and always pay your crew. That's kind of, you know, my little thing is when I'm producing, I'm always trying to take care of crew first, then the product can come out later. Because in the end, if you're going to ask people to work extra hard and long hours, it's kind of more of like you want them to willingly do that, but as a person that cares about other people, not so
Yeah.
much the jerks, but the decent people, hardworking people, they get a better effort, better attitude, better, it makes a better quality product in the movie. Because, like I said, in the end, I just want something proud to present to my friends and family and people in the audience that, like, hey man, they actually tried their hardest and then give us crap. So that's my takeaway is in the end, as long as the audience and the friends and families and the filmmakers that were part of it are happy, that's all I care about. Critics really don't care.
Right. Everyone's a critic, seems like. What
Yeah, that's the problem with social media and the internet, my friend. It happens.
with the unpredictability of film sets, how do you manage the balance between maintaining the production schedule as a line producer and allowing room for creative improvisation?
Uh, do some give and take, like also, like I said, communication. Make sure the director is happy with what they've done, and also try to guide them to, like, okay, we've been on this scene for like 3 hours. We need to do 4 more setups. How is the easiest way to move on to the next? And then try to think of ways of trying to set up the next shot with the other departments while also being quiet and not disturbing the director, make him angry. It's like trying to find ways of just try to plan ahead and be able to cut time in half so they can literally move from one shot to another shot to another shot. And that's the trick, is being able to get the crews to work with you.
I would say that's probably harder. Like in a small production, it's probably easier to actually do that and do it fast.
Yeah.
But I think the larger your production is, the harder it is to really have that balance, I would think. I don't know.
No, that's true. I mean, like crews of 300 people, yeah, it's not going to be quick, especially with all the trucks, catering, crafty, and it just being able to move the grip. Yeah, it's like, nah, it's, but they always seem to make it work. I mean, it's the reason why they're in the union. There's reason why people are talented, which is 95% of them.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So let's say instead of 300, let's say you're a part of a crew of 100. Who would you like? It takes time to really do the setup, get the costumes going, get the actors ready. Usually the actors are quote unquote in the trailer waiting, and the set is getting ready, the cameras. Who would you say is running around the most?
Probably not the actors, because they're talented. They usually, no, they're important, so they have to do much. It'd probably be producers, the runners, the PAs, definitely going from, one department to another, trying to move equipment, try to, and, do lunch orders, try to do like transportation. Transpo can move pretty dang quick. Like I said, they're always doing the big trucks. So it's really hard because there's different levels of who runs, but there's like really 7 departments, I would say, that are going crazy, 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 especially within the moves. But, I've done mostly the production side ever. So I've always said production really moves all the time. Like I said, it's definitely a hard, you got to kind of be fit to a point. You can't be, super duper, because it would be hard, and you never really sit down on set. So, like you said, it's hard to gauge. But yeah, I've always thought runners, PAs, transpo guys, grips and gaffers, I've seen that have been pretty active too. Art department's usually doing their own thing, but it's different kinds of stress. So, it's kind of hard to answer that one, because I could say any department really is,
The person, like what you just said, it sounds like a producer or a PA would be going from department to department to department doing checks, right? Someone, the director, whoever, or the assistant AD is going, I want you to go check this. I want you to let me know about them. I want you to know me about, this department, and then everyone else is just setting up, and, but you're physically running in circles trying to go. Are you guys
Yeah.
ready? No. Are you guys ready? No. Are you guys ready? How long? What's your ETA?
Or,
That type of-
it's there's that, but there's also like side projects like the PAs that always have to help, or they have to move like this equipment over here, or they have to set up tents, or crafty, or it's like there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of stuff that has to be moved. Um, so like I said, it's a very active career.
how many on average, how many PAs for these like major productions that you've been a part of? How many PAs are there?
20 to 30. I haven't seen one that had like 100.
Holy smokes.
And
Oh,
unfortunately, a lot of them don't get credit, so that's always been kind of an issue. And like the
really?
end credits of like a big time scripted show, yeah, a lot of the crews don't, especially the non-union guys, never get.
But you're getting paid, right?
Yeah, you get paid. That's what matters. But at the end of the day, for bragging rights,
Yeah.
I think the whole crew should. But
That's interesting. Yeah, I would think that they would get credit because they have your name. They're sending out a paycheck. So why not just add them on IMDb and say credit and then throw it, even on the film, right? Or
well,
whatever
it's
show you're
it,
doing.
it- it's a whole lot of different factors because I've also been the producer side. It's whether how many days they've been on set. They try to do it like a month. Whether an editor can spell your name, or I've heard different reasons. Um, a person didn't like you, someone like dated you, and then you dumped them, and then they're like, "Oh, I gotta get revenge." I've heard all kinds of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
It,
gosh. That sounds like a film that needs to be made. So, looking at your producer side, how do you approach budgeting and resource allocation as a producer, especially when faced with challenges of supporting creative visions and limited budgets? How do you manage that?
with calm, collected, and coffee. Um, it depends on what the circumstances are, where the places are, the locations are, what they're trying to do, how many shoot days. I mean, it varies on every set because it's always different.
Hmm.
um it's just try to handle all the departments and be able to like figure out who can do what, when days, when the shoot cycle is. I know this is a boring answer, but it's kind of like it's really depends on what the situation is and what's going on. It's boring, but it's also stressful, but it's also like how well can you handle with multiple tasks going on at the same
Did
time.
you just say it was boring?
Some people think it's boring.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think that's the best part of being a producer, to be honest, but
Yeah.
I'm
What?
not trying to
So
piss people off, but it's just like, yeah, it's
a producer is usually someone, and a line producer is the one that's doing a lot of the scheduling, right? Getting everything, put the
yeah,
ducks in line,
but
and
it's
then
also it's that kind of producer is getting people online and coordinating. It's kind of another coordinator position. I mean, it's up there. So some producers, it's kind of like they do multiple. There's different versions of line producers. Like associate producer can either be like a story producer, or or they just pay money and do it. I mean, it's like those producers are all at the same level, but they try to outdo each other and say they're this and this and this, and it's kind of like,
it's like an ego check for everyone.
yeah, they're above PAs, but it's kind of like,
Right.
are they PAs or the key set PA? It's kind of like, we'll see.
I think I
Again,
think
not trying to piss people off, but this is kind of the truth.
I think having a PA is, I think, important because you need to have that backup and stability of, for someone who has the skill set of, hey, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? Versus,
Unsung
oh,
heroes, yeah.
yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
versus having someone, no, I just do lights. I can't help you. You know what I mean? That type of
yeah.
mentality of like,
Oh, that's
I'm
the
a
ego's
gaffer.
top.
That's all I
Yeah,
do. So
yeah.
I think the one thing I've learned on working on some indie projects is that, as one of the lead actors, I did crafty. I bought all the stuff, set up all the tables. As one of the
Yeah,
lead
but you
actors,
also want some food. You're like, hey, I
yeah,
want a cookie here. Say a few lines. I want to have coffee here. Stay in that line.
But
Hey,
we all
it's
helped.
your food, Joe.
That's the
Okay,
thing.
they're not going to take
All,
that away from you.
all the actors helped unload the trucks. All the actors helped set up the set.
Yep.
That's the type of environment that I enjoy because it's more collaborative and you're not just an actor going, well, let me know when you guys are ready. I mean, I think there's to an extent, depending on how many people are involved, um, that's just not the type of atmosphere that I want to create. I want to create an atmosphere where we're going to make something. Let's do it together. Right. So I don't know. Have you ever been part of any kind of production like that where everyone pitches in?
Usually the smaller ones, like the short films. Yeah, those are cool. But like I said, the bigger ones, it's like, yeah, way more moving parts. People kind of just, I don't want to say do the bare minimum, but they don't like to overstep their bounds because they could offend people that are in the union, like, hey, you're stealing my job. And it's like,
Right. That always
yeah,
cracks me
yeah,
up.
yeah, well, you got that. And it's just like,
Yeah.
no, I'm just trying to help you.
Right.
No, then we have to pay you more money. And it's like, oh,
Yeah. It's always about, and that's not about the project. It's about it's about me.
yeah.
What's your experience been, as far as being a production assistant? What would you say are the most important qualities to possess for an overall successful project?
Well, have a kit. Be able to know how to use a gaff tape, have a pen and piece of paper, and be able to write down some notes or stuff you notice. So that could be a lifesaver later on when, a certain situation happened and you're there and you write notes of what happened in, like, certain situation where there was an extra moving in the background. If you're being like a background PA, you just want to be like, oh, this scene, so and so moved over here for continuity, and be able to, like, be able to, if no one's able to figure stuff out, have a phone, but don't have it on silent for one thing. But sometimes if you have to do like a run and you have to take notes, or you have to go GPS and be able to find, um, some kind of order, or you have to do a Home Depot run, you can be able to find it. But definitely don't have that on during the set because you get yelled at, possibly
Oh, yeah.
kicked out, and also
Yeah.
be fired.
That should be
Last thing
common
you ever
sense.
want to do is have the phone go off. But when you're like behind the camera and you're in the back room or something and you have a phone, just make sure it's on silent. Use it sparingly, but don't have it on all the time. Meanwhile, a lot of people are like, "What are you saying, Chris? Don't do that. Don't tell people that." It's kind of like an unofficial rule is film is don't have phones and don't take selfies, don't watch that. But sometimes when you're like a background PA and you're like in the tent with the extras, who I consider background actors, everyone calls them extras or herding sheep, but I call them background actors because that's what they are. They are actors that make the scene bigger and better and make it, seem like, it's a whole scene like a historical epic or something. But having said that, you need to take pictures with them, for continuity in case like 4 months down the road, they have to do reshoots. They can wear the exact thing that they wore that day and get their hairstyle, and then you give it to makeup. So there's benefits like that. There's, being able to use gaff tape, which is basically our duct tape but stronger, and we use it for everything. Be able to have like a utility knife, be able to cut things. C47s if you have spares. Yeah, Joe.
I'm
We,
gonna I'm gonna
we need a lot of those.
I'm gonna title this whole episode C47 with Chris. What?
Yeah. Well, Chris and Joe edition. Don't forget
Yeah,
that.
let me ask you this though. You said pen and paper. Are you not allowed to take notes on your phone, or do you have to write it
Well, I'm old school. I
down?
mean,
Okay,
some people do that, but I personally do pen and piece of paper, so I don't have
okay,
the phone on.
okay. I was just curious because I'm like, that's more stuff to carry. Yeah.
I mean, I'm an old school guy. Okay, I might be somewhat of a techie, but also I still like type. Like going like this all the time.
Got
Everyone's
it.
like, but I'm like, ah, damn it.
Yeah.
Ah. Where's
So
that leather again? God, I'm starting to sound like an 80-year-old man.
Oh my
Gotcha.
gosh. You're born into a younger body.
Yeah,
How
born in the
how
wrong
has
generation.
how has working behind the camera and position shaped your understanding of the film industry, and what advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers looking to navigate multiple roles in their career?
Uh, Everyone you work with works as a team. Um, it takes more thinking heads to do a movie. Like I was always like the impression as young is like just the actors and the camera were the only thing, but there's actually a lot more departments and more people that make a movie good. And they work as a team most of the time. And
Or
I like it brings a lot. It's like a big football team, but it's in Hollywood, and they try to make some art that only few people in the whole world get to do. So it's kind of interesting to see the cast and characters of everything and the moving parts and seeing this guy putting some green grass on the ground or this guy looking like Lobster Man. It's a lot of hidden stories that you don't get to see when you're watching the movie, but when you get the making of or BTS shots, it's always interesting to see how they did stuff.
those are my favorite. I bought Deadpool Wolverine because I didn't see it in theaters, and I have a 4-year-old and a family. I can't go to the theater, and so I bought it. But the first thing
Wait
I
until they're
did,
hot.
the first thing I did was watch the BTS. I watched
Yeah.
the director's commentary because I wanted to figure out and understand how the whole process worked, and then I watched the movie so I can appreciate what went into it.
Yeah.
That's but I've always been that's what got me going is I've always been that type of kid to really want to figure it out. How do they do this?
hmm
Chris, what's next? Anything you're working on now or in the near future?
Well, I really can't say that because I have a few NDAs going.
Got it.
But
Got it.
very soon, we'll announce some of my projects. I'm mostly going to be producing from now on.
Oh, nice.
The only time I'll ever probably PA is probably with Comedy Dynamics, the
Yeah.
Netflix special. That's the company I really like working with on and off. Um, but yeah, I'm got some stuff, early development stuff. Really can't say it because I literally just signed a contract earlier today that I can't. But
That's
very
great.
soon, yeah, the next couple of years I'll have some stuff coming out. But it's a pleasure seeing you again, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. I got 3 more questions.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Don't
Oh,
cry.
I
It's
can't be a
okay.
host for 30 seconds.
What's your favorite film making tech that you found the most useful when being on set, or things that you saw other positions, roles, background, things that you've seen? What would you say is your favorite?
So recently, grips and gaffers have a light, that LED light that can literally change by iPad any color, that they have, in
Yep.
the light. They with those lights, they don't. Yeah,
Big light
exactly.
or light tube?
Yeah, yeah, light tubes.
Oh,
Those
okay.
are new.
Yeah.
Those are new, but they have LED ones of those too,
Yeah.
and they don't have to put gels on them. Those are like, dude, game changer from when I started. And they're like, hold on, it's gonna be 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Now it's like, click, leave me alone. I'm gonna go sleep in my trailer.
Yeah. Yep. Tube
Yeah,
lights.
I mean that.
This is a nan light.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love them.
yeah, that's
They're
right.
expensive.
hmm
Oh my
hmm
gosh, the long ones are super expensive.
Yeah, but worth it, Joe.
Worth
Don't
it.
be cheap.
What's your
Okay.
favorite? All right. Here's
Yes.
your next question. What are your thoughts on AI?
Well, it's got all the potential in the world. The few criticisms I have is it's not there yet. They're stealing art from artists. Like, everyone's like, oh, they're writing stories and like movies and stuff. And when they see the few movies that there are, it's not quite human. They're getting rid of the human element. And I'm a little upset that they're trying to push it on everything. like jobs, cars, certain kinds of robots. Especially the arts, film and TV. They're writing stuff, they're making posters, they're doing intros and end credits. And it doesn't need to be that. You're taking people's jobs that done it forever, that are brilliant. It just kind of frustrates me that people are just resorting to doing that. So,
Yeah. All right, Chris Ihlenfeldt, how can people reach out to you if they want to reach out to you now that you're a producer?
please don't. No, just kidding.
I'm not going to edit that out. That's staying in.
Yeah, no, you better. You better not. Let's see. LinkedIn. You just search up my name, Chris Ihlenfeldt. Facebook. My IMDb's got my number and email if you really want to try to work with me. But I cut down a lot of my social media, so I only do those two because I'm lame.
No, that seems to be normal. I think a lot of people are doing that direction. What kind of projects do you like to produce?
Right now, documentaries. Long term, stop motion and puppet movies, more of them if I can. That's a whole industry that's very underappreciated, but there are brilliant people. Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop motion. That's time. Talking about time consuming. Holy smokes.
Yeah,
All right.
5 to 7 years to make those suckers. So
All right, Chris. Thank you for coming on the Downing Cut. I appreciate your time.
yeah,
Don't hang
pleasure
up.
to have me and see you again. Because hopefully we work together very soon.
Yeah.
Sooner than 4 years, buddy.
Wink, wink.